for life, more devotion to help the victims of the war, more devotion to help the extremely poor through our projects like the micro loan fund project that medicine workers are doing, giving a small loan to an extremely poor, hopeless woman. She uses that loan to buy a cow. And she gets benefit from the cow when it gives birth. And she sells the young calf and return the loan to the women union. The women union will use that loan to give to another. So from one woman, and other women benefiting this project. And especially, what gives me more hope is when seeing their back again after using the loan, they are happy because they can make some benefit in making a life, earning some money from the loan, even little. That is hope for the extremely, disappointed person. And moving around, seeing the victims of Agent Orange, you cannot imagine how painful, they live. They don't look like human beings at all. They look more like monsters. I said, monsters. We usually try to hold our tears back and see all the kids so doing that job gives me more encouragement, more devotion. I try to put my hatred aside. But personally, I am not giving up on the elephant. I cannot hold the enemy who killed my father. I do not want to touch him. No way. No. Hatred is still here. But now, just for humanity, for peace, for reconciliation, try to put it aside. But that's what I want to say after seeing the film. Hatred is here, And it's a shame for the son of a father who do not revenge the guy who killed his father. He should be a coward, not to revenge if he could take the revenge on. But I accept to be called a coward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Did you hear the last thing he said? According to Chinese and Vietnamese custom, tradition that goes back thousands of years, when the war is finished, you must avenge the death of members of your family. And according to Vietnamese people, because he has not done that, he is a coward, and he accepts being called a coward. I was raised in Boston, Wisconsin, a small town north of Wisconsin Dells. A very violent childhood. All of us were badly abused by my father. So by the time I was a teenager, any sensitivity had been pretty much beaten out of me. And so I volunteered to go to Vietnam. And looking back now, if somebody had tried to dissuade me and say, this is evil, you will be participating in evil if you do this thing, it would have been white noise. Would have had no meaning in my life at all, because one of the main reasons I volunteered to go to Vietnam was to please my father, the abuser. The classic response from the child to the abuser. I had this fantasy that I would be wounded, seriously, but not too seriously, and then my father would love me, finally. And of course, that's not the case. So I came back, survived the abuse and began growing or healing, whichever term you want to put on it, and began looking around, mostly looking back to what I'd been party to. And of course it was too late. I went to MATC here in Madison, tech school, on the GI Bill from 1976 to 1978. The summer between those two school years, it fell into place for me. What I had been party to, what we had done in Vietnam, and I went to my mother's house, went to the attic, got my uniform, my medals, and threw them in the garbage. That next school year, I went to the veterans representative and I said, I'm no longer taking the GI Bill because it's blood money. And then I had to get a job. But as the years passed, and I learned about our true history around the world, and I realized that the war in Vietnam was not an aberration, I started backing away. You know, just refusing to be part of this society, and ended up living in a shack, no plumbing, no electricity. You know, like apparently a lot of veterans ended up that way. And I was, looking back, I didn't know I was looking for anything. I just knew I was angry, and I knew what I didn't want. But I didn't even know that there was something I did want. And going back to Vietnam in 1992 just turned my life on its head. I had never experienced something like that, putting bricks together in the context of evil. It was such a powerful, life-changing experience for me. So I began looking for more work of that kind, and by the end of 1992, a number of us in Madison took on this project to start a microcredit program for the poor women of My Lai. And as Doe has said, since then we have, well, in My Lai alone, we have the microcredit program. We built compassion houses for the poor. We built 4 primary schools in My Lai. We have an art exchange between the children of My Lai and Madison. Now these are pretty generic projects, schools and so on. What's special about them is that they're in My Lai. I mean, for people of my generation, I don't know if you've experienced that, but if you get into a discussion about My Lai, the discussion immediately devolves into anger or guilt or recrimination. We bypassed all of that long, long ago, just to focus on helping the villagers there. We now have these microcredit programs in 16 villages. And to give you an example of the power, the potential for these microcredit programs, we funded a program in Trung Cang village in the year 2000. And whenever we fund a new program, Doe and I go into this village as soon as possible to meet the women who have received the loans. Because that's our approach. It's not top-down at all. It's very person to person. And so one of the women we met was Mrs. ses4pt2. And she had no expression in her face. She took us to her cow pen to show us the cow she had bought, and then had it artificially inseminated already by the time we got there, so that when, as Doe said, the calf was born, she could sell the calf, pay off the loan, have the cow bred again. Well, when she finished, Doe had advised me a couple of days before we came there that this village had also suffered a massacre. Not the numbers of people killed as in My Lai, but still a massacre. He asked her, were you there the day of the massacre? And I watched as she responded in Vietnamese and then just burst into tears. She just couldn't speak anymore. She said, yes, she had survived the massacre, but 2 of her children were killed. Well, the massacre at My Lai was begun and over with in 4 hours. The massacre at Trung Cang took place over a period of 2 days, where the GIs, American soldiers, kept coming back, killing anybody they saw, but mostly trying to hide the evidence, so they burnt the bodies. That meant it was days before the villagers felt safe enough to come out, unearth the bodies, and bury them properly. Bodies rot quickly in tropical heat, and the last thing Mrs. Hood told us before she just broke down was, I cannot forget the smell of the rotting bodies of my children. Well, we spent a fair amount of time with her that day, and look, she would answer our questions, and that was it. She was dead inside, her eyes were flat and lifeless. And to me, she had died inside when her children had died. But I was wrong. 2 years later, Doe and I were back, and she was laughing and talking and grabbing me by the arm to meet other women who had received the loans. Doe asked the neighbors what had happened. I mean, this is almost resurrection. And they said once money started coming into the household through the sale of calves, that at long last that crushing burden of poverty she had been living under lifted enough so she could begin to heal. So this aid is more than just economic aid to, for lack of a better word, spiritual aid. It's one story. We have many other stories. I would like to talk about, just a little bit, about my relationship with Doe. First of all, I didn't realize, I mean, this is hard. I've sacrificed a lot to do this work. I had always expected to be married and have children. That's not going to happen. But still, I'm driven to do this work. And so I finally had to ask myself, what was driving me? And the only thing I could come up with is balance. I need balance inside me. To find some sort of peace in my life, I have to do this work. I have to. Otherwise, I can't live. And to find a man such as Phan Van Doe, who feels the same way, is so remarkable to me and so inexplicable to me. During those violent years of my childhood, I went to Catholic grade school and Catholic high school taught by nuns and priests, and there was violence there in the church. And so I reacted in my late teens and 20s pretty strongly against any kind of organized religion. And I reached a point where if I couldn't touch it, see it, hear it, it didn't exist. But I can't explain how we met. The only thing that makes any sense at all is fate. I could go on about this, and I want to say one more thing. Doe talks about carrying hatred inside himself. He is not alone in that. The Vietnamese people hate, period. It's inhuman to expect them to somehow not hate after what they went through. What is remarkable about the Vietnamese people